The Austrian Grand Prix ended with a podium that satisfied Ferrari, but not Charles Leclerc. Indeed, in Formula One, the 27-year-old doesn't like finishing behind others. Once again, the Monegasque driver knew he could not have done more, which is why, after a flawless race at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, seeing McLaren out of reach was frustrating. Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, seemed more upbeat, partly because he has long been thinking about next season. Nevertheless, he admitted he still has not found full confidence with the Ferrari. So let's once again take a look at what happened in Austria. The leading group opted for the medium tire at the start, a choice driven by the intention to extend the first stint. The yellow-banded Pirelli tire allowed for better rear temperature control. The Red Bull Ring features a high macro-roughness surface, but tire degradation was not extreme, as the forces exerted on the rubber are moderate. The issue came from thermal management, particularly at the rear. Rear slippage during traction phases created serious challenges in keeping the back of the car cool. From the first laps, it was clear the McLarens had a much stronger pace. The fight was between them, with Ferrari immediately out of the battle. One of the recurring themes during the race was lift and coast, easing off the throttle before braking to manage temperatures. It's a concept Ferrari has dealt with for years on various tracks, and it's especially important in Austria, one of the most demanding rounds for both the power unit and brakes. In the very early laps of the Spielberg race, Ferrari told its drivers to apply the so-called LECO, namely lift and coast. This meant drivers had to lift off the throttle before braking, especially into corners 3 and 4, to cool down the car's components. For the SF25 single-seater, this also related to skid wear, the key metric to check ride height during the race. According to the garage, Charles Leclerc wasn't executing the liftoff properly, prompting his race engineer Brian Bozzi to order him to do it nearly in every corner at one point. Naturally, drivers dislike this practice as it significantly increases lap times. Lewis Hamilton was informed during the first stint that the strategy had switched to Plan B. In hindsight, this referred to a two-stop strategy and the use of mediums in the final stint. Meanwhile, a fierce fight was brewing between the McLaren cars of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, who, despite their intense duels, were still able to pull away from the Ferrari drivers. Around lap 19, Oscar Piastri reported rear degradation and hinted at a possible pit stop. This might have been a strategic move to get the team to pit him before his teammate, who had the right to stop first. That way, he could attempt an undercut on Lando Norris. The team hesitated but ultimately called in the British driver on the next lap. The Australian ended up damaging his own race by flat-spotting his front right tire just before the radio message, a desperate move to overtake his teammate. Lando Norris held his ground impressively. Oscar Piastri had to do 5 extra laps on a flat-spotted tire, rejoining the track 6 seconds behind his teammate after his stop. Both McLaren cars switched to hard tires. Ferrari pitted Charles Leclerc to switch to the hard compound. He rejoined behind Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso as the Maranello team stopped him before the pit window for those two had opened. During the stop, they adjusted the front wing slightly to improve aero efficiency and rebalanced the car for the white-banded tire, moving the center of pressure slightly rearward. As soon as Charles Leclerc started his stint on the hard compound, Brian Bozzi told him to reduce front axle degradation. It is unclear what exactly this instruction meant. Still, this phase also saw a heavy reintroduction of lift and coast. Ferrari, through deputy team principal Jerome D'Ambrosio, claimed these were standard brake optimization procedures. However, listening to other teams' radio communications, this was not a common issue for them. Ferrari's liftoff was more frequent than expected, suggesting the Italian cars were closer to their brake temperature limits than estimated. Whether this was the only reason remains uncertain. Jerome D'Ambrosio's words must be taken at face value, although there is still a suspicion that lift and coast was also tied to plank wear. The skid block Ferrari must always keep under control. Even without lift and coast, however, McLaren was clearly out of reach, especially when showing its true pace. Ferrari's goal was to re-establish itself as the second-best team, a goal fully achieved, especially compared to a struggling Mercedes that endured one of its worst weekends of the 2025 Formula One season. While other teams use this tactic too, it is evident that none apply it as consistently as Ferrari. The team radio confirms this clearly. Whether the issue was circuit-specific or a chronic weakness of the SF25 car, the result was the same. It slowed Ferrari down. After Charles Leclerc's stop, Lewis Hamilton also pitted, mirroring Ferrari's strategy. It became apparent that the medium tire was the best compound for the race, not the hard. In the early stages of the stint, Ferrari lost ground to Lando Norris, but midway through, the gap stabilized. Meanwhile, George Russell, on mediums, continued to increase his lead over the Ferrari cars. Between laps 50 and 51, Ferrari made their final double stop. Both SF25 cars returned to the track on fresh medium tires, the last available sets to finish the race. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri caught back up with Lando Norris due to two key factors: better luck with traffic and damage to the Britain's front wing, which reduced balance and affected handling in fast corners 6 and 7. In conclusion, Ferrari ended the Austrian Grand Prix weekend with a positive result. However, it is wise to wait for the next Grand Prix before fully endorsing the effectiveness of the new floor. The Silverstone circuit, which is considered to be an open-air wind tunnel, will be the ideal track to confirm whether the Italian team has genuinely improved in terms of downforce and its overall management. Charles Leclerc's words after the Austrian Grand Prix reflect the mood within Ferrari, a team that began the season with much higher expectations. However, there are still positives to take from a weekend that brought the Italian a podium and confirmed them as the second fastest team on the grid. For a driver like Charles Leclerc, who always aims for the top, a third place may not mean much, but it's still an encouraging result, a reward for the effort of the technical staff working to address the car's main weaknesses in the early part of the 2025 Formula One season. This message was echoed by Ferrari Deputy Team Principal Jerome D'Ambrosio and reinforced by Charles Leclerc, who said the podium helps team morale, just like the front-row start in qualifying the day before. That qualifying result was also aided by Oscar Piastri, not completing his final lap, but in the race, Ferrari clearly proved to be the second-best team. It was a crucial weekend to evaluate the effectiveness of new updates and to pull ahead of rival top teams. The mission was accomplished, with a strong podium for Charles Leclerc and a fourth place for teammate Lewis Hamilton. The two Ferrari drivers had a fairly quiet race, with a solid gap to Mercedes behind. Charles Leclerc acknowledged the impact of the new parts introduced this weekend at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, but made it clear they are only a first step in a longer development path. Charles Leclerc told Sky Sport F1 after the race that he believed some progress had been made and that the updates brought to the event had definitely contributed to securing the podium. He stressed the importance of continuing to push flat out. The Monegasque driver acknowledged that no one within the team was satisfied with the current performance level, and that third place was not enough. But noted that, in a season like this, such a result helped lift everyone's spirits. The Ferrari driver added that a lot of work was happening behind the scenes to improve the situation, and expressed hope that the next set of upgrades would allow the Maranello team to take another step forward.